little bit different than what we did yesterday. So if you were absent yesterday, you must watch the video or you will be confused. However, I forgot to post it, so it will be posted today with today's video. Okay, so if you're looking for it, it'll be today. Alright, so number 11. They want you to start with the f function, because see how when it says find, the first thing you get to is f? What is the f function? 2x squared minus 4. But I did not write x. I left a big blank for it because what do you get to next? That means they want you to plug the the f function in the x place. But why do you think I left that x blank? They want you to plug a negative 1 in there. So now type that in just how you see it and tell me what the answer is. Now remember, that's a negative 1, but that's a minus 4 and that's a minus 4. This is a page I gave out yesterday.
Oh, I messed up already.
So 2, open parenthesis, 2, open parenthesis, negative 1, close parenthesis, squared, minus 4, parenthesis, squared, minus 4. Well, okay, I'll do it without a calculator really quick. Negative 1 squared is positive 1. Positive 1 times 2 is 2. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. Positive 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 4 is positive 4. That's what you should have got.
That's not what I got.
Okay, watch. I'll even type it in to show you. Okay, here we go. So 2, open parenthesis. 2, open parenthesis. Negative 1, close parenthesis. Square it. Then minus 4, close parenthesis. Square that. And then minus 4 one more time. You should always have the same amount of open parentheses as close. Like see how we have open, open, and we have close, close? They should always match up or you're going to get an error. Okay, so hit enter and you get positive 4. Okay, let's try the next one. F of g of negative 6. So the first thing I get to is what letter? F. And the f function is 3a minus 4. But the reason I didn't actually write the a is because what do they want me to plug in the f function? The g function, which is, I'm going to need more room because that's a long function to plug in. So a squared minus 1 minus a. But why did I not write those a's of the g function? They want you to plug in a negative 6. So now plug all of that in and see what you get. Well, let's see. Negative 6 squared is positive 36. Positive 36 minus 1 is 35. 35 minus a negative 6 is like 35 plus 6, so 41. 41 times 3 is, what's that, 109, well, 123, but then 123 minus 4 is 119. Just be glad you have a calculator to type it all in. Okay, number 13. Why don't you go ahead and try that one before I just go over it for you? Looks like you're ready. What is the first function that you get to? G. So we're going to write out the g function, which is 2x plus 3. But I didn't write the x because what do they want me to put in the x place? The h function, which is x squared plus 2x. But I didn't write those x's because what do they want me to insert into the h function? 2. Now all you have to do is type it in, and what did you get? 19 is correct because 2 squared is 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 plus 3 is 19. Number 14. What function do you get to first? The g. The only function up there. So 3x plus 5. And then don't they want you to plug the g function in the g function? So 3x plus 5 again, but what do they want you to insert into that x? Negative 8. Now all you have to do is type it in. Okay, what'd you get? Negative 52. All right, number 15. Number 15. Down here, they just use different notation. That open circle represents of. This is G of H of 2. This is G of negative 2. So this could also be written like this. G of negative 2. It's the same thing. It's just a different way to write it. So which function do we start with first? The G function, which is x squared. X squared. And don't they want you to plug the G function in that? So we put x squared inside that. And then what number do we put in it? Negative 2. Now type that in and see what you get. You should have got 16. Also, if you think back, I taught you a while back that a power to a power, you multiply the powers. So isn't this just negative 2 to the 4th power? Which is positive 16, because 4 negatives cancel out the positive. An even number of negative signs will always be positive. Number 16. Doesn't this mean the same thing as h of g of 1? So what function do we start with? H, which is a negative a. So negative a. And then what do they want us to plug in this h function in the a place? The g function, which is a cubed plus 2a squared. And what do they want us to plug in the x, or the 8 places of those? 1. Now just type it in exactly how you see it. Yeah? Yes, because you're going to substitute something for it. Okay, when you type that in, what did you get? Negative 3. Okay, I want you to take a few minutes and try 17, 18, 19, and 20 by yourself. Okay, number 17. G of h of negative 2 is basically what that says. So we start with which function? The g function, which is n cubed plus 5. Okay, what am I going to plug in that in? The h function, which is n plus 3, but in the place of that n, what do I plug in? Negative 2. When you type all that in, what did you get? 6. No. First you write the g function, then you write the h function inside the g function, and then you plug in the negative 2 into it. Let me do it again. Let me just do it again. Okay, look, the first letter we get to is the g function, right? So I write the g function first. N cubed plus 5. So, see how I've written the g function out, n cubed plus 5? So I've written the g function. They want me to plug the h function inside it. So I'm going to plug n plus 3, which is the h function, inside it. But in that n place, I plug negative 2. Negative 2 plus 3 is positive 1. Positive 1 cubed is 1, and 1 plus 5 equals 6. No. No, not yet. Okay, number 18. G of h of 5 is what that means. So we start with which function? The g function, which is x cubed minus 4x squared. chose to not write these x's because they tell me to plug the h function in those x's. 2x minus 5, 2x minus 5. What, y'all forgot to plug in for the second one? But then inside those x's, you put this number 5. Now type it all in and see what you get. Why do I do what? Because it's telling you that you want to plug 5 into the h function, but before you do that, you want to plug the h function in the g function. So let me just re-plug it in real quick. Okay, so you read left to right. The first thing I see is g. So I'm going to bring down the g function, which is x cubed minus 4x squared. Okay, see how that's x cubed minus 4x squared? I brought down the g function. But they want me to insert the h function in the g function. That's why I left blanks for the x's, because I'm going to put this function inside. So 2x minus 5, 2x minus 5. It means yeah. Yeah. No, that's not times. That's Shh, be quiet. Then I plug 5 into there, and so once you've typed all of that in, what do you get? 25.
Okay, I got the same answer, but I couldn't do it the first time.
I'd have to see how you did it. Just show me later. How do I write what? I wish the guys in the back would be quiet so I could teach. First, I start with the f function, which is 4x minus 2. Okay, so see how I wrote out the f function, 4x minus 2? I just didn't write the x. And I didn't write it because they want me to plug the g function in it, which is 3x plus 4. But I didn't write the x of that one because they want me to plug 1 into it. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 4 is 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 28 minus 2 is 26. Okay, number 20. G of h of 5. So the first function I need to write is the what function? G, which is what? 3x minus 2. Hold on. I see already that this next one's long, so I need to expand it. 3x minus 2. But I didn't write the x beside the 3 because they're wanting me to insert the h function in it, which is x squared plus 4 minus 2x. But I didn't write the x's of that function because they want me to insert a 5 in the place of them. And so now, 5 squared is 25. 25 plus 4 is 29. 29 minus 10 is 19. 19 times 3 is 57. And 57 minus 2 is 55. Because I multiplied it in my head. Yep. Step 1, you're going to switch, the x and y. That's step 1. Switch the x and y. And then step 2, you're going to solve for y. Okay, when we get to number 1, and I say switch the x and y, you're probably going to say, where's the x and y? Instead of using y, they chose to use g of n, its function notation. We're just going to make it a y. Okay, and instead of using the letter x, they chose to use the letter n. We're just going to use x. You can do that. Okay, so if I switch the x and the y, what will this one now look like? If I just completely switch those. X equals. Okay, so I did step 1. I switched the x and the y. Now if I solve for y, what's the first thing I have to do to solve for y? Correct. I got to get that 2 out of the bottom, so I multiply by 2 on both sides. That cancels those out because 2 over 2 is 1. And now it leaves 2x equals y minus 3. Now to solve for y, what do? Add the 3 on both sides. So doesn't that leave y equals 2x plus 3? Is y solved for? Yes, so you're done. That's the answer. That is the inverse of the original function. Now, it won't work like this every time because some get more complicated, but I want you to notice something. In the original, it was x minus 3. Now it's plus 3. And over here, it was divided by 2. Now the x is being multiplied by 2. It doesn't work. It's not that easy every time. However, it kind of gives you a good idea if you did it right. All right, number 2. Instead of y, they just wrote g of x. It's called function notation. But to make this easier, I'm just going to change it into a y. Okay, and x is already x, so we don't have to worry about changing that. So, step 1 is switch the x and the y. What will this problem look like when I switch the x and the y? Correct. X equals negative y minus 1. Now that we've done step 1, we need to do step 2, which is solve for y. What is the first step to solving for y? Add that 1 to the other side. So now you have x plus 1 equals negative y. Is y by itself? No, because it's got a negative 1. So what do? Well, that negative 1 is touching y, which means they're being multiplied. So we divide by negative 1. Okay, those cancel each other out because a negative 1 divided by negative 1 is a positive 1. And is there any need to write that positive 1? Now look right here. Look so you're not confused how I get this. I'm going to simplify. X divided by negative 1 is negative x. 1 divided by negative 1 is negative 1. Look what we got back. The same thing as we started with. That's rare. Okay? That's the final answer though. Okay, number 3. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this g of x a y. Now, step 1 is switch the x and the y. What will it look like when I switch the x and the y? Right? So now when I start solving for y, what do I get? Or what does it look like? Subtract 3 on both sides. And so now I have x minus 3 equals 4y. Now I divide by that 4. Now, unlike the last problem, there's really nothing there that I can simplify. It just stays. X minus 3 over 4. Because you can't reduce that. There's nothing you can simplify there, so that's the final answer. Alright, number 4. I'm going to make this f of x y equals. Now when I do step 1 and I switch the x and the y, what will it look like? Negative 4 over y plus 3. So to solve that, what do I do first? Subtract 3. Anna, you're going to be lost. Now I have x minus 3 equals negative 4 over y. Okay, it is a very rare thing that we move the letter that we're trying to isolate, but sometimes you have to. You know how normally the letter that we're trying to get by itself, we don't move it, we just move everything else away from it? Well, for this one, we're going to have to move the y to get it out of the bottom. So you multiply by y to cancel it out over here. When you multiply it over here, though, all of this is already sitting over here. So you're multiplying it all by y, and you show that by putting it in parentheses. So now I have y times x minus 3 equals negative 4. Now to solve for y, what do I do? Okay, isn't this y being multiplied by x minus 3? So to undo that, can't you just divide by x minus 3 on both sides? And so y equals negative 4 over x minus 3. Okay, number 5. Go ahead and make this a y and this an x. Can I erase everything else? Or at least this side. Okay, now what's step 1 for finding an inverse? Switch x and y. So what will that look like? X equals 1 over y. Step 2 is solve for y. So what do I have to do first? multiply by y on both sides to get it out of the bottom, right? So now I have y times x equals 1. Now to solve for y, what do I do? Divide by x on both sides. So there's another time where I get back the same thing, 1 over x. Okay, why don't you try number 6? Look at it. I went ahead and changed that g of x to just a y equals. So when I flip-flop the x and the y, it becomes x equals 4 over y plus 2. Now to start solving that for y, I need to first subtract the 2 on both sides, which will leave me x minus 2 equals 4 over y. Now I need to get that y out of the bottom by multiplying by y on both sides. So now I have y times x minus 2 equals 4. And now to solve for y, I divide both sides by the x minus 2. So I end up with y equals 4 over x minus 2. Is that what you got? Okay, number 7. First, make that a y and that an x. And then when you flip-flop them, it'll be x equals negative 1/7 y plus 5 over 7. What should I do first? Subtract the 5 over 7 on both sides. It cancels over here. So now I have x minus 5 over 7 equals negative 1 over 7y. Okay, now to get that y by itself, what do I do? Normally when we have something being multiplied by y, we do divide. But do y'all know instead of dividing by a fraction, what else you can do? Have you ever been taught that you can multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction? Negative 7 over 1? Let's talk about why that works. If I have a negative 1/7 and I multiply by the reciprocal of it, 7 over negative 1, what's negative 1 times 7? And what's 7 times negative 1? So don't they just become a 1? That's why when you multiply a fraction by its reciprocal, it cancels out. But that means I've got to multiply this side by negative 7 over 1. So basically just negative 7, right? And then I'm not sure at this point if they're going to leave the answer like that. If you don't see that, what will it mean they've done? Distributed that negative 7 to everything. Okay, so if they distribute the negative 7 to everything, that will become negative 7x and then plus 5. Okay, so you may see either answer. They may leave it or they may distribute it out. Okay, number 8. Go ahead and try number 8. Okay, for number 8, when we switch the x and the y, what will it look like? Okay, now to start solving for y, what do you do first? Minus 5 on both sides. So that becomes x minus 5 equals 7y. And now to solve for y, what do you do on both sides? Divide by 7. So you end up with y equals x minus 5 over 7. Okay, tomorrow we'll pick back up with number 9, so there's no homework. You can switch out.